And here we go. It is not quite Valentine's Day, but I am celebrating early with people that I love. Earth's Mightiest Critics.
Oh,
I know. And I got uh,
Likewise.
Dollar Tree's finest chocolate with, count them, one, two, three, four pieces of candy in it, one for each of us. Although I don't think that'll transfer through the screen. We're not quite there yet with the technology.
No.
But someday. We're here to talk about Hard Eyes, the latest horror movie. I don't quite know how to describe this, so I'm hoping that tonight in the panel, we're going to get through this. We're going to talk about this movie in spoilerific detail. There's a lot to discuss here. It's unlike any movie I've ever seen, and that's mostly a good thing. I feel like the script could have used one more pass and it would have been like a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
But as it stands, it's still pretty interesting. And that's kind of my high level thought. But before we get into it with everybody, we're going to talk about who everybody is. I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Jeff York of the Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artists. We have Katie Glidewell, the blonde in front, and Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck of the Spoiler Room and Special Mark Productions. Welcome, everybody. Hope you're enjoying being basically snowed in on this lovely February 12th. We got a snowstorm coming in through the Midwest. It's pretty awesome. But we're going to talk about something nice and warm and fuzzy, and that is murder.
murder.
Oh my gosh, Katie, is that a
Wow.
Is that a transparent machete?
Yes.
With blood, yes.
What is that from?
It's from a very elite store called Spirites Halloween. I think it's French. The Americans call it, Spirit Halloween, but in France, they call it something different. So I got that here. Love it. And then I sat on it and broke it. But it still works.
Katie, as Robert Rodriguez once said, if you're going to send Machete to take out the bad guys, you better make damn sure you're not one of the bad guys.
Machete don't text.
Machete.
But he does send Valentines, I get the feeling. He's a sensitive cat.
Yes.
All right, so Katie.
Yes.
What is, if you would grace us with a synopsis, what is Hard Eyes?
So I would say Hard Eyes is if Scream with not another teen movie, but with rom-com instead of teen movies. That would be Hard Eyes.
Yes. Although I would say it's mainly, and I only know this because I was going to say forced, compelled, invited to watch a lot of Hallmark, especially holiday movies, and those Netflix rom-coms that come out every year. This reminded me of one of those.
Yes.
Perfectly recreated, but planted into the middle of a slasher film with some moments of this not another teen movie business. Like there is I'm not going to call it a monologue, but there's a meaty piece of dialogue towards the end where one of the characters basically is talking into a phone to her friend. And the dialogue is 90% just titles of other rom-coms with some, connective tissue. It's pretty wild. But one of the things that I think is fascinating about this is it starts off as a slasher movie, kind of segues into this kind of Hallmark rom-com, and then gets re-engaged with the slasher part, and it's mostly effective. I want to talk about that mostly effective part here tonight. But Katie, what did you make of Hard Eyes? You gave a good description of what it is, kind of as a genre piece or a melding of genre pieces. But did you like it? Did you think it was effective?
I very much liked it. I liked a number of the scenes between the leads, Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding. I like the banter that they have. I like the call to, and I mean, this is a spoiler, I like the call to His Girl Friday, which I actually watched that for the first time a couple weeks ago after I saw Hard Eyes. And when we were watching it, the person on the stage said that this movie is actually in Hard Eyes. And I'm like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. It's like the way the two characters interact and stuff. And honestly, it has, and I will say this is a bold statement, but I think you gentlemen will know. I think it has some of the best sound editing in a horror film ever, which is also extremely comedic. Which, if you're in that van at the movie, you know what I'm talking about. You guys know what I am talking about, because that was freaking hilarious. Like, you have this moment between the two leads. It's like this meaty dialogue, you know, really getting into it. Meanwhile, in the background, you hear the little like different things that are obviously going on with the bodies of people who are, you know, loving each other consensually. And it is hilarious. So I like how they don't try and take it. They don't try and it doesn't try and take itself too seriously. And I like that the director had a little spot in the film. I liked his film Werewolves Within, and a couple other ones he's done. Some of the other ones he's done I haven't been that much of a fan of. I do love Werewolves Within though, but this one I liked. The ending did not surprise me, honestly. I love the whole camaraderie between the girlfriends. I always love a good wardrobe montage. That to me is a romantic comedy. That is like 101 when you have that. So when I saw that, and the fact that they, like, you know, played up to Pretty Woman, Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, like different romantic comedies.
Clueless.
Clueless. Even in that montage, I was like, okay, I like what you guys are doing. I'm on it. I liked the practical effects. I liked, you know, murder is a love language. So is massacring. So, you know, there's a whole new level with that. And I could see this possibly being a franchise. I like, you know, the whole look of the killer. It's very, you know, My Bloody Valentine for the millennium. And yeah, I dug it. I know there is a lot of controversy though, since it is Screen Gems.
Wait, what's the whole? I haven't heard about this. What's the controversy?
Well, no, not Screen Gems, Spyglass. I'm sorry, because Spyglass, I believe, is the studio that did that produced Scream. So it's one of those things, since Spyglass, you know, kind of bailed out on its lead actresses or its lead actress speaking up and doing all that stuff. So there's been a lot of people who have been trying to say that people should boycott the film for all of that. I understand what they're saying. I know that, but I was not happy when they kind of, you know, treated Neve Campbell like shit and didn't pay her the amount that she wanted. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on, but this is a different director. This is a different writer. I think people should watch this. I think it's a very fun film, especially for Valentine's Day. The other one that there's a couple other that are set on Valentine's Day, which it is a piece of shit. So there's that. So this one is much better, and I would definitely advise people to go see it.
Yes, very. I agree with a lot of what you said there. We'll dig into some of that. I want to go back to that van real quick, because I was surprised, and this I think I was expecting, because in any of these movies where you've got two people having sex in a van, whether or not they're the center of the action or just like kind of an incidental piece where it's a joke, what do you get? You get the van rocking and the squeaking sound of the tires and the shocks and all that stuff. This one, you're right. It sounded very natural, and unfortunately, I could visualize what was going on back there. And that was a horror in and of itself. But Jeff,
sound people, kudos to the sound design people. Good job, everybody. Good job on that crew. You guys, you nailed it. Seriously, Oscar time next year, you guys really should be recognized.
The Foley experts really enjoyed that scene.
Oh yeah.
Oh wait, also Katie, I noticed you were kind of putting a couple of words together, and it occurred to me you were saying consensual and also sensual, and I was thinking,
yes,
has anyone ever used that? You put the sensual in consensual.
There you go.
I don't know if you could make that joke, because it sounds really inappropriate somehow, but you know,
I think Sondheim could do a lyric or two with it if he was still around, but
probably.
There you go. We'll just have to ring up the ghost of Sondheim. Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Hard Eyes. You told me you saw this before I did, and you were pretty high on it. It's been a couple weeks now, right? Are
Yep.
you still thinking about it? Still high on it?
I am. I mean, there's been some other films that I've seen since then that have taken up more brain space. But I will say this. I think there is a new sort of genre that is, or maybe subgenre that has come out maybe in the last 20, 30 years that seems to be very paramount in the horror genre lately, and that is sort of these meta films that
Yeah.
are very self-conscious. They almost play as comedies because they're so self-referential or parodying. And, you know, Scream was, of course, the franchise that sort of put that whole thing very strongly on the map. But I would argue that a lot of at least half the horror movies, it seems, since then are almost winking at the audience, like, you know, this is a reference to that, or this is for the fanboys, or I'm not going to be too serious about here, or I'm overdoing the gore so much that you can't help but laugh kind of stuff to it. Now, the trouble when you do that, and I think this is the big challenge for your filmmakers, is you have to be really funny, and you have to also be pretty good about the horror stuff you're doing. And a lot of my problems with those kind of films, and we've talked about a few of them here, is they don't really ding the bell for me on either. They have characters that are just stupid, so it's not very funny, or they're too gory, and it just becomes like, well, yeah, you spend a lot of time and money on the effects without necessarily having the thrills or the tension and the dread that kind of goes up towards that, right to the edge of it, and actually is more valuable, I think, in the genre. This, I think, does both of those, and with discretion. After the Hard Eyes Killer is introduced in the first 10 minutes, it's a pretty gory kill, but it's not as gory as it could have been. And I thought they're nodding towards, we want couples to sort of enjoy this. This is going to be a little bit of a comedy. So it's like, oh my God. But then like they don't overdo it. So I thought, wow, discretion, good for them. They have a scary killer and he's pretty good. And he's, you know, pretty good with the knives and the cutlery. But then they make sure that we're still invested in it. Also, the characters aren't too sympathetic. I mean, they're a little ridiculous and we don't hear them quivering or quaking too long. So that's good. Then they spend about 20 minutes getting us into the story of these two characters. And it's pretty realistic if you're in an ad agency. I mean, just the way the creative director is, and, oh, this has failed, so now we bring in somebody else to fix it with you. Like, you don't really get a shot at it yourself. And then the banter between them, and it's pretty clever. And I thought, wow, they're really having them sit down at this restaurant and having 5, 6, 7 minutes of conversation and kind of get to know each other. And yes, there is some rapport and some chemistry between them. Bravo. And they're pretty witty. They're both pretty smart people. So in the first 15 minutes, I was kind of sold on this. Like, okay, they've established character. They've established a wit. They've established a threat, but it's not too gory and I'm still involved with it. And they're being meta, but really strongly well done meta in a way. And that's a little rare. I think it got almost better from there because they kept keeping it exciting without going too far with the bloodletting or, you know, the violence. There's and as the body count builds, you know, as you guys, as we'll talk about, it could have been, oh, this person didn't deserve it. Or do you remember that scene at one of the Jurassic World ones where the babysitter is picked up by the flying, whatever the hell it was, pterodactyl, and is thrown around between? She didn't deserve to die like that. And they just belabored like she's, you know, the Wicked Witch of the West in the original Wizard of Oz. Like, she doesn't deserve quite that much of a comeuppance, even if she's a little bit of a nag.
Well, especially because it was played for kind of a popcorn thrill.
Exactly. You know? Like, this is funny, folks.
Well, and especially since she just met those kids like 5 minutes before she died. I mean, it's not like they have that much animosity. It's like, hey, stranger, you deserve this. Yeah,
exactly. That's right, Katie. But see, like here, there sometimes is in these movies, like, let's make these characters really disposable. Let's have them, you know, to be utterly cowards and just slaughtered, and they're quivering and quaking, and none of that happens here. I mean, even that couple in the van, they're oblivious until boom, it's done, you know, and it's pretty much played for laughs, but we're not, you know, invested in them like, oh, you know, we have to watch them, you know, get even worse sort of mental horror before the final blows. So for me, it kept its meta qualities both in check and both reasonably smart throughout, and kept me involved. And I agree with Katie. they're almost too clever in the sense that, because of course it's a mask, that could be anybody in there. You've got a franchise, and it's a Halloween costume that you know is going to be at Halloween spirit, and it's an easy one to do because all you need is a trench coat and the mask, and then you're done. And you don't even really need the blade and the artillery or whatever he had in rather elaborate setup underneath that trench coat. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny till the end, and the surprises worked for me. And the biggest surprise for me was that they kind of kept it smart and clever and right sort of discipline throughout the whole thing.
You know, it's weird because as much as I said that the script could use a second pass, I don't know that I would want to see a sequel to this movie. I'd like to see someone try this idea again with its own, kind of its own fresh start. I like the fact that even through the mid-credit sequence, there's not a setup for a sequel.
Right.
A setup for a sequel would have to be, a few years from now, someone read up on this massacre that happened and
they picked up the mantle.
Yeah, there's no, person who's left in the shadows, waiting to emerge, or a killer that comes back from the dead. But before we get into more of that, Mark,
I think I'll just drop out of the site and let you guys talk about this.
Why?
No, I want to get your perspective. You did not. I can tell you did not like this movie.
No, it's not that I didn't like it. It's just I wasn't as impressed or floored with it as a lot of people were. I got what they were going for. It wasn't working for me. I don't know quite what it is. It opens strong. I'm like, okay, I'm into this. And then we get into the rom-com part. And I actually enjoy the rom-com part.
Mm-hmm.
I think the horror elements actually ruined the rom-com part for me.
Well,
which is odd because I am
a
horror fan, but I enjoy the chemistry so much between our two leads. I almost wanted to just see that story rather than the horror story. The horror story almost feels shoehorned into this rom-com in a way to where it feels slightly out of place in parts. And I get what they were going for. And again, I totally get what they were going for. It just didn't quite. It came close, but it just didn't quite get it to me. And maybe it was also because it just hit too many Scream familiar notes. I mean, it really is like a template from you just have your two. You don't have as many, say, characters that are being terrorized, but it really hits a lot of the Scream notes, especially we got the spoiler banner up. Yes. When we get to the end, which I saw coming, a mile away, I saw where this was going. In fact, the minute we meet Jordana Brewster's character, who I really enjoy, I love how she went all in for this. It was fun to see her in a different role. And I enjoyed her character, but the minute she showed up, I'm like, she's at least one of them. I knew right away there were multiples. I mean, I predicted fairly quickly that there were multiple killers. I'm like, okay. And then when she showed up, I'm like, okay, she's going to be one of them. And, I guess that for me, it's the so familiar beats. And maybe if we hadn't had a couple of Scream movies in the recent years, maybe this film would have been a little bit better experience for myself. But the fact that we've had two Scream movies fairly recent within, the orbit of this one, it really felt too familiar to where this almost feels like a Scream spinoff that they had a script written for, and they decided, oh, well, no, we can't. We'll just retool it. I liked the design of the killer. I liked the horror elements and what they were going there. Putting them together, I'm glad you guys saw it. For me, it felt uneven. It felt like sometimes it was taking itself possibly a little too seriously, and then it was like, oh no, wait, look, wink, nudge, meta reference, and then we're back to serious horror elements, and then we're back to rom-com, and then, oh no, wink, nudge, Hobbs and Shaw joke, which fell completely, was like not neat. I'm like, why did you put that in there? That falls so flat for me. I'm like, and then there's this.
But hey, Jordana Brewster was in those. She was in Fast and the Furious, Mark. That's meta on meta.
Yeah,
I totally get it.
And Mason Gooding was in one of those last two Scream movies that you talked about.
Exactly, and
that's where I. Oh yeah, that's where I recognize him from. He had that face. I'm like, I don't know where I've seen this guy, but I've seen him. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
And I guess for me, with the way they were teasing it and stuff with the trailer, I was hoping for a little bit refresher or a little bit of its own identity than it being so much in the Scream wheelhouse for me that it kind of took away my experience from it, just because, again, I liked a lot of parts of it, but for an experience as a whole, at the end of it, I was like, okay,
No, I mean, Mark, I think we are pretty closely aligned. I was higher on this movie, I think, than you were, but I share the same issues that you have with it. I think I admired it. And I was happy through most of the screening because of the audacity of it. It does have that kind of a Scream feel, but it does have its own voice in the fact that they really leaned into that kind of Hallmark Channel romance with the characters.
Right.
Before we get into that, we have a bunch of comments from, I think, some new commenters. This is exciting. My Bloody Valentine? No. Heather Green? We're talking about Hard Eyes. My kingdom for a slasher populated with dumb, pretty teeny boppers played by mid-20s somethings. Well, and this was, I was talking about this. This is why I was irrationally excited about the prospect of watching Hard Eyes, because I mean, I've enjoyed, some of the Scream movies. I thought Eli Roth's Thanksgiving was a lot of fun, but a lot of this kind of horror we've been getting the last few years has been the elevated horror, where it's not just a slasher movie, it's something else, or it's not even a slasher movie, it's something else. It's a ripoff of Silence of the Lambs. I'm looking at you, Osgood Perkins. And it's just, I was waiting for the return to good old fashioned 80s, 90s slashers, and I thought that's what Hard Eye was going to be, and it kind of is. Although I do like the fact that the mid-20-somethings are playing mid-20-somethings. That was kind of refreshing. We're watching a movie mostly about adults having to deal with a serial killer and kind of acting as adults. They're not, kind of emotionally arrested teenagers. So that was nice. Heather also says the bleakness of that small mining town where My Bloody Valentine is set is the scariest part even before the mass killer shows up. I have a confession to make. I have not seen the original My Bloody Valentine.
Really?
Wow.
I saw the 3D remake, which I thought was incredible because
it is.
Partially because Tom Atkins was there to introduce the screening. Partially because when his jaw flew off, I swear it went past my head in 3D in the screening. That was amazing. Let's see. So I'll have to fix that blind spot, Heather. Same 6 producers making all new wave Zoomer horror! Exclamation! Yeah. Sure. And that's, hey, every generation deserves its horror.
Absolutely.
Heather says, Hard Eyes 2, The Hills Have Hard Eyes.
I love it.
Very good.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, you know what?
Hard Eyes 2, Hard Eyes Wide Shut.
Here we go.
Jeff, what are you going to say real quick?
Well, I was going to say, actually, Heather, I think, is onto something. And actually, Mark referenced it in the last bit. It might, I don't want to necessarily take the podcast in this direction, but it's an interesting discussion because I think we have reached a point in horror where for most young filmmakers who are coming up and doing horror movies, they are doing Xeroxes of Xeroxes of Xeroxes. It's the 6th generation of Scream or the 6th generation of, this comic horror film or things like that. I mean, even by the time Vincent Price was doing Dr. Phibes, and to some degree, I think his maybe best performance in a film, Theater of Blood, those were parodies of a lot of horror that had gone on before them in many respects. And they were regarded as basically comedy horrors more than horror comedies. And Hammer did that, and Roger Corman did that. And, even sort of going back to Abbott and Costello, they were parodying things with them meeting Frankenstein or the Wolfman and things like that. I mean, Lon Chaney probably parodied the Wolfman as many times as he played the Wolfman. I think it is very difficult in this genre, and we're all fans of it here, and written about it extensively, to create something that's truly new and different. A director who, wow, that's a different way to approach it. That feels different. And it's not Hitchcock or De Palma or, whoever the flavor of the month is of the last 5-10 years or something like that. I think, to your point about elevated horror, Ian, I think that's where some of the better stuff has come in. Like, I think David Fincher is essentially, in many respects, doing elevated horror with some of the things he does. And it's become a look for the films too. And some of those high ends want to imitate Fincher now. But if you're going to do these sort of imitations of imitations of imitations, like so many of these people are doing, you still have to do them well. And at least this one is done well, because I've seen so many that aren't done well. And you just go, oh my God, I think I could have done that in 7th grade and probably did, as we were coming up with better ideas for a horror movie around the lunch table or, school or whatever. But I think I understand exactly what Mark is saying. This is not breaking any new ground. I think what they're doing, though, and nothing against Heather, I think she makes excellent points. My biggest thing that takes me instantly out of horror movies, and we've had this discussion before, and I know sometimes you guys don't like hearing it, but I hate it when characters are so stupid that we're rooting for the villain to kill them. I just don't think that's the good thing for society, for critics, for audience, for anybody. And ultimately, I think that ruined Friday the 13th and so many of those slasher movies where we're invested in the killer, not only because he's the franchise, but also because they put in all these cardboard idiots around them to deserve what they got. Here, I like these two people. I wanted them to survive. My biggest worry is like one of them is going to bite the dust, and they didn't. Spoiler alert. And they were smart throughout. They had, even though they were bitching and moaning and bantering and stuff, just like Grant and Russell in His Girl Friday, they still had the eye on the prize. They were trying to escape this killer and figure out who it is. As in, they were trying to tell the story about the wrongly convicted man in His Girl Friday. All the other stuff is fun and shenanigans around them, and I think they did that well here. But to the bigger argument that maybe is a discussion point for this show or your show, Mark, or whatever, is, where are we at with horror now? Because like I said, I think a lot of it verges on either direct parody or homage. And it's very hard to find original thoughts, original approaches, even original killers anymore. Because to your very point, Mark, I knew it was going to be two guys. Well, of course, it's been that since the first Scream, because one killer isn't interesting enough. And the studios, I'm sure, are telling the screenwriters, go back and write it, because we got to have another 10 minutes here to make this interesting. And that becomes a bad cliche. But I think that's been movies since Scream. Almost every movie since then has had some sort of like, well, if they're not two killers, they're not quite dead when you think they are, Well,
I mean, even the two killer idea, and I didn't know this until a couple of years ago when I started watching Giallo films, but that goes back to at least the 1970s. I mean,
absolutely.
There's some really great ones there. Real quick before we move on, I got to get Deanne coming back to class up the joint. If I want wink, wink, nudge, nudge movies, I'll watch The French. I swear to God, you are. Let's see. The last horror flick I watched was that Jim Jones documentary on PBS.
That's about it.
That's a horror movie. So you say wink, wink. You say wink, wink.
There's a new one on Peacock that's really good too. So watch that.
You say wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and I think of a Monty Python skit.
Same.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I know what I mean. A wink's as good as a nudge to a blind bat. Whoa. Anyway, sorry.
I don't want to get copyright struck on this show, Mark.
Oh, you won't.
A little too real.
No.
Heather says, I find that meta self-awareness kind of replaced the stupidness of slasher movies. It's its own tropes. Yeah. I mean, and that's why to Jeff's point, I really like these characters, Allie and Jay. And even if it's weird because I like the chemistry between the actors, but their dialogue, their situation that is straight out of Hallmark movies. Forget rom-coms. I mean, this is the copy-paste template for every one of these kind of Hallmark, Netflix things, right? But I wonder if people who are into the horror genre, those who love slashers and would probably not deign to watch those other films, if that at all feels fresh to them. And conversely, people who are into those rom-coms get dragged by their boyfriends or girlfriends who are really into horror movies if they've not been exposed to that. So I feel like there's real crossover. The theater I was at, I went paid screening, and it was a pretty decent sized crowd. And there were a sufficient amount of laughs, a sufficient amount of what the hell am I watching, but in a good way, because there are kind of a lot of surprises, especially when you mash up these genres. So I feel like, again, that extra pass on the script would have really helped to meld these elements as opposed to having them kind of bang together. As much as I liked the best friends kind of monologue involving the rom-com titles, that really did belong in an airplane or not another
Oh,
teen movie
see,
kind of movie.
And that was one of the scenes where I did kind of roll my eyes, and I usually don't, but I rolled my eyes only because I mean I got what they were going for with that. But it's not just this, and it's not necessarily the movie's fault, but ever since Scream, and if you watch enough indie horror films, and I'm going to preface this by saying support indie horror. I love indie horror. One of the things, though, that indie horror does a lot of times, unfortunately, that just takes it down just a little bit for me, is they want you to know they're horror fans. And so then while you're watching, you're going to get those references, like Jeff said, you're going to get all of these callbacks or these mentions or these name drops of them. And I understand it's in public domain, but we don't necessarily need to see Night of the Living Dead on every TV for a horror fan in a horror movie. And, that's what you get. So you get here, and I go, especially when they were trading the titles back and forth, I like, okay, that's creative. But at the same time, I'm like, I've seen this so many times. Okay, this is just the rom-com version of what I've seen in the indie horror, and I think for me that's what it was for me on this. I mean, with slashers, a big appeal for me, the ones that really hit for me, newer ones, are ones that do slightly something different. There was a wonderful indie horror film that came out a while back that got some buzz for a while called Haunt.
Oh yeah.
And on its surface, it's a basic haunted house story. But what it actually is kind of is a melding of The Hills Have Eyes and a haunted house story kind of meshed together. It's practical. It's shot well. It's just, and for that one, I really dug that one. And in this one, again, I was getting what they were going for. And maybe it's just because I watched so many. But for me, I realized that this isn't exactly the horror film for me, which is something that horror fans, especially Gen X horror fans, sometimes have a tough time reconciling with, not realizing the reason we loved the horror movies in the 80s and early 90s is because we were in our 20s and our late teens, and that's the demographic for your horror. So when they actually start making horror for that genre, that demographic, we're no longer in that demographic.
But it's interesting. One of the things that I think this movie succeeds at, and I think some of the better horror movies of the last 20 years have succeeded at, without necessarily falling into all the tropes and the cliches and the sort of style and subgenres or whatever we want to call it, have out of so many in the last 20 years, is horror is sort of, I'm not going to say it's the backdrop, but it is the elevator pitch where the story underneath that, as we've talked about here occasionally, is more important. I'll give you two examples. One is The Babadook. The Babadook is a very scary thing. It's about this dreaded character that comes to life out of this book. That's the elevator pitch. That's what is going to be in TV Guide and Apple TV Plus and everything else. What's it really about? A mother who's been a bad mother and not made right choices, and she's kind of helping the scares along, if you will. An even better one, I think, my favorite horror movie of this last 20 years is Let the Right One In, the original Swedish version. It's a vampire movie. You could say, the novelty of that is that it's a child vampire. Yes, but we saw that already in Interview with the Vampire, the Kirsten Dunst character, et cetera, et cetera. What's that movie really about? Loneliness. She's lonely because she's been around for 70 years, and her peer is the kid who grew up to be this incompetent man who's trying to take care of her and can't. And here's this little boy who's weak and frail, and he's being, sort of the butt of the jokes and the bullying in school. And these two people find each other. And that's what the core of that movie is about. Yes, there's moments of violence, but it's not your typical, like, we're after the vampire, we have to kill the vampire, here's our Van Helsing character. I mean, if you literally probably looked at that movie and said, how many minutes of violence are there versus the minutes of these two people who are lonely and just one of them happens to be a vampire, I bet it would be 50 minutes to 10 minutes out of every hour. That makes it more interesting. And here with that couple, you know what their bottom line story is here? The creative director, very funny, played by Michaela Watkins, or how did I pronounce her name right, is Find a better angle on love. Work together to figure out love. And that's what these two people do. They find a way to stay alive, beat this killer, and find love. That's what they've been tasked with. They create it, not necessarily in an ad campaign, which was the original thing, but the bottom line, the sort of read between the lines story after the elevator pitch is work together to find love, to make to make love come about. And that's what's kind of humorous about this, is that that's what they do.
Well, and I think we kind of danced around like what the movie is and some of the themes and the kills, but I mean, really, I think we need to set up what the story is. So you've got Allie and Jay. Allie works for this, it's like a boutique, I don't know if it's a perfumer or fashion or something. It's Michaela Watkins' company. And Michaela Watkins,
like
jewelry. It's jewelry. Yeah.
Jewelry.
It's one of those products where the commercials are so artsy you don't even really know what they're selling you. It's got this very much a Calvin Klein vibe. So Allie creates a campaign of, and that's one of the things I do love about this movie is the ad campaign that she puts together, the series of commercials. They're gorgeous. There's lovely black and white.
They did them really well
throughout the ages. You've got Romeo and Juliet. You've got
it's movie love affairs gone wrong.
Yeah,
right.
Bonnie
and
Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde, Titanic, and the bloodletting is all these. It's black and white photography, all these, and the bloodletting when it comes out is these beautiful red ribbons.
Yes.
And it almost has that effect of being shocking and gory, but it's also kind of beautiful because it's artsy. But unfortunately, Allie was not conscious of the fact that our Heart Eyes killer has been killing people for the last 3 years on Valentine's Day. So this is perhaps not the most appropriate pitch. So Jay gets brought in as sort of this expert ad man to help her fix the campaign. Mm-hmm. And even that dynamic's interesting. It's not like, oh, you're fired, we're replacing you. It's like, I'm going to, I'm going to write out your contract. You're going to work for these next 6 months and you're going to do it with this guy. And so they go out to dinner on Valentine's Day. It's not a date. Things don't work out well. They go out of the restaurant. And of course, she meets her ex that she's been stalking on Instagram and his new girlfriend. And it's the classic thing of, I'm going to lean over and smooch this new guy who is a coworker and we don't even really like each other, but just to make the ex jealous. And who sees this? The Heart Eyes killer from across the street. And so he starts following them like, the shark in Jaws 4, the generational, just like going after this.
I have to get this one couple and this only couple.
Right. And so they become the target for the night, or one of the targets. And I love that as he pursues them and catches up with them and terrorizes them, they're constantly trying to convince him, like, we are not a couple. We don't like each other. Go find someone else. Until they, eventually become a couple. Mm-hmm. And then there's the fake ending, and then the other fake ending with the reveal. And then it gets very, very Scream, especially with the multiple killers. But I do appreciate some of the subversions that they sneak in there. Like when the killer is finally killed and unmasked, Jay says, I think they might have even said it in unison. They said, "Who the fuck is that?"
Yeah.
And it's very much a Roy. It's even further than Roy from Friday the 13th, The New Beginning, because at least we saw him somewhere else in the picture. This is like a guy that we have literally never seen before. Now, because, as you mentioned, Mark, Jordana Brewster does kind of play her hand. She's one of the two detectives. I can't remember if she's Hobbs or Shaw, but
she's Shaw.
She's Shaw.
Okay. Wow. But it's easy to imagine, okay, she's going to show up as one of the killers. There's the guy who's the IT guy that Allie runs into at the police station. And he's wearing glasses and everything. And he's in it for one scene and he kind of hits on her. And she says, look, I'm having the worst night of my life right now. So thanks for taking your shot, but no, thank you. I knew that he was going to be one of the killers because of Roger Ebert's law of the economy of characters.
Yeah,
it's got to be someone, right?
Well, and also he's an extremely attractive person that's randomly in this thing. And I'm like, oh no, they're not going to waste you, honey. Like, you're going to come back and do something. Because if she's not getting together with you, I know Mason Gooding, is supposed to be the guy, but it's like, come on. No. As much as she complains and she's got the vibrator that is next to her bed, which that would have been really funny if they would have given away like little something like that to the audiences for sneak peeks and stuff like that. That
would have been for hard fun, Katie, not hard eyes.
Yes.
But no, I don't know who is that actor who played the character.
I don't know. All I know, when I was like, that IT guy is, I'm gonna look him up later.
Well, because like it's interesting you say that, because when he first shows up, he's wearing glasses. It's very dark. I'm like, okay, he's kind of nerdy, but there's something about him that doesn't quite seem nerdy. But when he is revealed as one of the killers in the end, you're right. He has that kind of almost an alpha hot guy charisma. I'm like, I want to know who this guy is too. The other thing is, it's strange because Mason Gooding, he reminded me of someone throughout the movie, and it bugged the crap out of me. I'm like, who is this? Who does he remind me of? He reminded me of Glenn Powell. This could be very much a role that Glenn Powell would have played. And in some cases, I think should have played, because there's a little bit too gee shucks pretty boy thing about him that I think this guy needed a little bit of an edge to him, because he was just almost too perfect. I was almost waiting for him to be the fourth killer in the deal. But let's pull over, because we have...
Well, you know who Mason Gooding's dad is?
Don't say Cuba Gooding, because then I'm going to feel really old. Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just... Oh, there, I see it. I have his picture up on the IMDb, and like, yeah, that totally makes sense now. All right. Damn it. Now, Katie, every once in a while, you make me feel...
For you by saying that.
You just make me feel insanely old. To me, Cuba Gooding is always going to be like 19 years old and being that fresh upstart in Boys in the Hood or whatever it was. But okay, he shouldn't be old enough to have kids. All right.
Grandkids, probably.
Stop it. Heather Green says, if the meta self-awareness makes the character isolate into a party when they know the killer is on the loose, maybe them being stupid and horny isn't much better or worse. Yeah, there you go. Hard Eyes 2, can't take my hard eyes off you. Got it. Also, Hard Eyes 2, hard eyes without a face.
Oh, good God.
Heather, I don't know you, but you are a viewer after my own heart. Or should I say after my own? These are going to fall out. I'm going to do this. My own heart, eyes.
Nice.
Anyway. Deanne, isn't the new horror movie the serial killer true crime movie anyway, just less gratuitous teenage boob shots? Yes, and the world is poorer for
that's
it.
True. And it's become procedural television too.
Yes. Sorry, it's hard to stop, but just another title. No, keep them coming. Don't let us discourage you.
James Bond.
The Hard Eyes of Laura Mars.
For your
The Hard Eyes of Laura Mars.
Only.
The Man with the X-ray Hard Eyes. You want to go
Hard
back
Eyes
to
for
Ray
you.
Milland? Somebody's got to drag up the older films here before 1980.
Hard Eyes Break Ridge. Wasn't that? Sorry.
Oh,
My God.
I know that. I hope that put the brakes on it. I'm sorry to ruin everyone's party.
Really use a Clint Eastwood movie about like from the 80s.
Which Dave Kerr famously picked as the best film of that year, or at least better than Platoon, which was the other big sort of army movie that year, which he did not have any time for, but he did like Heartbreak Ridge.
That wasn't Clint Eastwood. Is Heartbreak Ridge the one with?
It was.
No,
Heartbreak Ridge was.
You're thinking of Hamburger Hill, I think, was the other one.
That's it.
That's
with
right.
Dylan McDermott. Yeah.
That movie was not what I expected. I thought it was going to be like a documentary about McDonald's. What?
There's that, of course, that international film winner from the Oscars about 15 or 16 years ago, The Secret in Their Hard Eyes.
Oh,
do you remember that one? The Secret in Their Eyes? They did a terrible American remake of it, which is just crap on a cracker with Julia Roberts. But the original movie from Argentina is fantastic. I recommend it highly. The Secret in Their Eyes.
Well, we'll have to ask Betty if he's seen it, if he pops up tonight.
He may,
sequel sucks. The original is great.
Yeah, it was so well done. And it was a surprising Oscar winner that year for Best Foreign Language Film. But it was one of those things like, hey, if they're watching it, they're making the right choice, because it was so smart and clever and really, a great thriller. And you don't see those kind of films generally in that category. So anyway, it was a real crowd pleaser. But it was also very arty and very foreign in its way. So anyway,
Well, I will.
there you
I'll
go.
have to. I'll have to check that out. All right, we've got some more from Heather, and then we're gonna get back to the
Oh
movie.
no, Mickey Blue
Hard
Hard
Eyes
Eyes.
2, queer
one of
hard
them?
eye.
Oh. Your eye for
Queer
the
hard
hard
eye for the
eyes.
straight guy. Yeah.
Oh, that's very
Um,
good. Very good.
Hard Eyes
There
2,
you
totally
go.
clip to the
Totally
hard
clip
eyes.
to the hard eyes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we're going into rock songs, aren't we?
Well, yeah,
Well,
but I
yeah.
mean, it's Bonnie
Oh, okay.
Tyler. You gotta
Yeah,
give
well,
some
all
room
right,
for that.
I'm just saying.
That hair. Anyway, and Mickey Blue Hard Eyes.
Nice.
Wow.
I just said
one-
that. I just said
That's
that.
a sequel
Hugh
with
Grant.
Hugh Grant. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
doing horror, so there you go.
Actually,
There
I
you
think
go.
no, I don't have that one. No, I don't have that one. I've got a different one, but
Well,
Hard Eyes,
Um,
brought to you by Visine.
By the way,
Ugh.
Ian,
yes.
our man crush from Heart Eyes is named Yosin An.
Yosin on.
there you
Okay. Has he
He
been in
plays
anything else?
David.
what
And you
One
would
of
let
the-
Yosin go on and on and on.
one of the things that was interesting with Hard Eyes at the end was the break in character, and there were a couple of holes with our character that our killer story that again I wish I was getting into this film as much as some other folks. I'm like, this has all the elements, but just something about it. I don't know if it's the way it was shot or whatnot. So I noticed a few things. One of them is our reveal with the two killers doesn't make sense. As far as the serial across different cities,
Yeah.
these guys,
Yeah, they don't
being
explain the
materials.
cop. Was she in those
Right.
cities and everything like that?
Right, and that's what I mean. I mean, it's like
it is a throuple. It is a throuple.
it is a throuple, but even still, it's a throuple. But the one guy is a fan. But you know, does that mean that there were some other Hard Eyes? Is one of them the Hard Eyes killer that traveled across the cities and pairs up with, say, someone local? So even though these two are hooked up together, you know, Jordana Brewster's Shaw and Hobbs, they you know, Shaw, if she's paired up with him, did they just meet within the last year? But this guy's actually been, you know, and they're sharing this.
Mark, it's giving away the prequel. Damn it, man. Don't you understand how movies work?
No, but
of course they don't explain that here, because they're going to explain that in one of the sequels, which will be a prequel. And it's like, you know, Jordana Brewster's taking vacation on Valentine's Day to go to the city they've chosen to, you know, some people go down to Niagara Falls. They're going to Philadelphia to do a spree of serial killings.
I mean, I hadn't even thought about that angle, Mark, but I mean, that's the thing is, I don't think we're meant to necessarily tie all these people together as in they only kill as a threesome. They, you know, because there are separate attacks even in this movie. So I mean, yeah, they could go. There could be a Hard Eyes person, you know, killing in, you know, I think it was Boston and some other places. Yeah, and who knows what combination of them were doing those things beforehand. But you said there were some other things. Like what other?
Well,
things
the other thing they
got your
broke
thought?
through is the Hard Eyes doesn't talk to him for pretty much most of the film, and then all of a sudden they phone call at the end and get the scream ending at the end, where she suddenly gets a phone call from the killer, Hard Eyes.
Yeah.
At the end, even though up until then, you know, whichever killer has been Hard Eyes has been terrorizing them and being fairly silent towards it till they revealed themselves. And then suddenly we get this phone call, which again is fine. I don't need my hand held to me, but it's, if you're going to set up that they've been killing across the city, maybe give me a line of dialogue or a hint that's saying that this is a viral trend that people are making and there are other Hard Eye killers in other cities, but implying that they are the sole Hard Eyes killers, then it brings in some questions for me. And then also the break in behavior. But
well, I mean, as far as the phone calls go, that makes sense to me, because it's we haven't seen the kills across the, you know, the other states, the other years. I think that was one of the kind of the nice touches is we open with the winery kill. But then it turns out we see on a news report that this has been going on for a while.
Right.
And we haven't seen any of those other murders, so we don't know if there's been phone calls or other conversations. I imagine not, but I also imagine they probably individually or as a threesome have not come across a couple like Allie and Jay.
sure.
They kidnap Jay, and they are really pissed at what this couple has put them through. So they really want to do that whole revenge thing. In order to draw her out, they have to get in touch with her somehow, and that's where the creepy phone call comes in. My biggest issue with this movie, besides the trailer, because the trailer gives away the van kill, which I think if I had seen that in a theater, yeah,
I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it.
I didn't watch it either, Katie, until afterwards. And I said, Ian, don't watch trailers then, because that's a shame if they gave away that kill.
They do.
The red band trailer, they show the whole thing with even with the head coming up and the pulling back, so you see Allie and Jay through the hole. Yeah, and that's your prize kill right there. And they
no
just
more
gave
previews
it right
for
away.
you.
I'm serious. I've started turning them off.
They show too much, especially in horror movies. They want people to say, "Oh, there's that scene I saw, honey. You're gonna love it. Scare, close your eyes." You know, it's this weird, like, they play to people so they can walk in with an advantage over whoever they're seeing the movie with, and lord that over them. Like, oh, this is a really cool part. Like somehow they need to have that superiority over their friends, but that's the way trailers are done, and they're done for that very reason.
Mark and I talked about that regarding Companion. Like, they gave away, a key part of that film, and it's like, why?
It's so silly. They shouldn't have done it. In fact, we've talked about this on the show before too, but there is a lost art and I can think of 5 ways to do the Companion trailer, which would have been better. They don't have to show so much of these movies in these trailers. I stopped watching them. I discovered a thing. Katie, you told me to see Companion. I knew nothing about it. I didn't even know the poster until I walked by it. And I half looked at it as I walked by it at the movie theater. And I'm glad I didn't, because it's all, I mean, I knew some things I could figure out as a film goer, but you don't want to see the scenes, within the last third of the movie. That's just asinine. And yet so many trailers do that today, and it's wrong.
There is an exception, though. While I was watching Hard Eyes, or the trailers before it, 30 minutes, okay? 30 minutes.
They're only 15. They're only 15 minutes in our town, but Marcus Theater, if you go to them, it's 20 minutes.
They've extended it 5 minutes. I mean, it was 25.
It used to be 25.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous.
And I don't know if you get all the. Oh, good.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I think it was a special occasion, because I swear I saw the trailer for every horror or genre film that's coming out for like the next 3 years in front of Hard Eyes. But one of them was, it's a movie called Until Dawn. I don't know if you guys have heard about this or seen the trailer. I was watching this trailer and I was thinking, this looks really bad, because it looks like, yes, it's another bunch of teenagers / 20-somethings going to a cabin in the woods. And there's even a Groundhog Day element to it where they're reliving this night of horror. And I don't want to, we've got the spoiler banner up, but even though that's the case, if y'all see it and you don't know what the twist is, the twist, at least in the trailer, comes up at the very end. And I think, okay, now I've actually got a reason to watch this movie. And I was very surprised. So hopefully there are more surprises in store, and that wasn't just, hey, we blew our load. Now it's going to be like every other slasher, cabin in the woods type movie that you've seen. But it was fascinating. So yeah, but that's a really rare case. Jeff, to your point, they give away everything, and it's terrible. They think so little of us that they can't do anything arty or surprising. But the other thing that kind of ruined the movie for me, in some case, I mean, I really liked the film, what it was trying to do, but the way it opens is almost unforgivable when you realize that it's not a mistake or a joke. That scene in the winery, it's out on a field, a sunset kind of thing with a couple getting engaged. It looks like it was shot in the volume or against like really cheap green screen. And so I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be like the fake movie that the people in the movie are watching on TV. It's going to be very Scream. But no, this was the actual first couple from the first kill. And it looked so cheap that even after that rather impressive kill with the girl's head in the wine press, I was still thinking that would have been great if they just, taken a camera crew outside.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're kind of getting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Katie.
Sorry, I was gonna say regarding the whole thing with trailers, every studio needs to follow what Neon did with long legs. Like, that is the way you do a trailer. I remember like being in a theater, and I hate trailers because they give too much away. I saw the most hated trailer last year. I'm saying that. I'm not saying it probably wasn't, but Speak No Evil, which basically you see that trailer, you don't need to see the movie.
No.
And even my two friends, I'm like, I don't think I need to see. I'm like, you don't, because they gave away the major thing. But then they played Long Legs, and I'm like, and that's how you do it. I have no idea what this is about. I have no clue what I'm going to expect. It says Nicolas Cage. I don't know who he is in this from that trailer. That's the way you do it. Well done. And I'm looking at, why aren't more studios doing this?
Well, to that point too, I wrote about this. I'm not trying to plug my article from Popular Artist. You can look it up though. But I think one of the problems that they do not talk about in Hollywood, and it's always on the movies, you know, like, how do we get people back in the theater? Better movies, this, that, and the other thing, of course. And, you know, better stories and not so many, you know, reboots and sequels, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think the chains are doing much to help us. They really aren't. I mean, I think that first 20 minutes before the movie gets you in a negative headspace for the movie. And I will just pick on one person because I love to pick on her. But they have been running that goddamn Nicole Kidman. We come to this place to suppress our Australian accents, to wear clothes we'd never wear to the movie theater, to sit in an empty theater like it's a screening for a $10 million actress. What are they doing? And that's been running for 3+ years now. I'm sorry, AMC, you're killing your own product by not replacing her. There's got to be other things to do, creativity, 100 other things. Make big hay out of the popcorn buckets, you know, or something else. But literally between her and that Melina McCunos and her bad, you know, trivia and bullshit, it's a downer. It's like these people don't go to movie theaters because they don't know how to engage people. But to your very point, Katie, the worst are the trailers. There is a formula. If you think there's formula in movies, there's a formula in trailers, and they're shameful. And it's almost true for every genre. It's ridiculous. Do you remember when Stanley Kubrick came out with Eyes Wide Shut, his last movie, and it showed, you know, we did a bad thing by Chris Isaac, which is in the theater, and we see Nicole Kidman just staring at herself in the mirror, and she's nude. It's an R-rated movie, and Tom Cruise comes up and starts kissing her, and it says Cruise, Kidman, Kubrick, and then as he's going in for the, you know, the heavier lovemaking, she's staring at herself, and it says Eyes Wide Shut. That was it. Now, because of that trailer, maybe some critics and some audiences alike thought it was going to be a movie about sex. It's not. It's about obsession and jealousy, which is part of sex, but it's not about sex. But that was a great trailer, and Kubrick did it himself because he's like, I'm not going to show most of my movie. Those names and this little piece of film are enticing enough. And for most movies, like they did with Long Legs and what you're talking about, Katie and others, those little bits are enough. They don't have to show that much of the movie. Find a better way to do them.
A trailer that just came out that I saw before Hard Eyes that actually has me interested because they hadn't had much, if any, PR outside of the poster is a new horror film coming out called Sinners.
Oh yeah.
I watched the trailer for it. I didn't look up the synopsis or anything, but just the trailer. It's got a lot of really cool, wicked and scary scenes and some really cool moments. But even as a horror fan, I'm like, what's going on? Why are they like this? What is this actual threat? Is this a cult? Are these zombies? What's going on? Because they don't give you that in the first trailer completely. They give you hints, but they don't give you like someone giving a little bit of an exposition dump like some trailers do with the voiceover in it. They give you these wonderful scenes, and I'm like, shit, I'm in. And my son, too, he was like, well, that looks interesting.
Yeah, Sinners is another one because they do show a lot of scenes, but they don't tell you what the movie is about, to your very point, Mark. And it is weird because it seems to be a supernatural thriller of some kind, but then you've got machine guns. It's a period piece. I will say, Jeff, slight disagreement. I love Maria Menounos, and also I love the Nicole Kidman thing. I don't know what.
Do you still love it? Seeing it after 3 years, you don't think they could refresh that?
I think it might just be because of repetition. I've been hypnotized to appreciate it.
No.
And I challenge you, sir. She says, "We come to this place for magic." She's got the accent. It's magic.
She's trying to suppress it, and she can't. That's the
I'm
trouble.
trying to suppress my love for that AMC trailer that she's in.
Even heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Shut up.
You know what would make this better?
Oh, I hate that.
They do need to switch out, and they could do this probably through AI. They need to switch out the movies she's watching, because she's watching like Creed and La La Land. They need to put in like.
Wouldn't it be funny seeing? Here's what they should do, like in our
Baby
meta
girl,
world.
Baby girl.
How's our meta world? Do parodies of that. You know, imagine like if you'd have like, give it to 6 comedians to do. What would Nikki Glazer do with that? Or you know, Jim Gaffigan. What would I think you could almost do parodies of that and surprise us, you know, or at least have different celebrities do a different. I mean, you guys all know, as we know from advertising, that there is wear out, and that every movie theater in America of an AMC kind shows that thing before the thing. So we've all seen it 100 times, and that's wear out. It was worn out by the 10th time we saw it.
No, I think you're onto something, Jeff. I think instead of parody, though, what they should do is play it straight, but get people from different genres. I want to see Eli. I want to see Eli Roth's take on that commercial.
Yes. Yes.
Different actor than Nicole Kidman.
See, that's
but
a
turn it
funny
into,
idea
like,
right
horror
there.
something.
You know, or get like different characters to come in from different movies. You know, like what would Hard Eyes do if he's coming there? You know, like like people are sitting there. Did you get popcorn butter? I told you I wanted popcorn butter. You know, his throat is cut, and then the butter is coming out of his neck. No, just a thought.
Yeah. Ugh. That reminds me of the final.
Because
the
trailers for horror movies are generally R-rated. There's
a lot
red
of
band trailers
nowadays,
for R-rated audiences.
All right. Well, we're gonna get out of here. And yeah, because I know.
Are there any more comments?
There are. We're gonna breeze through them. Mark, I know you got to go soon, so we're going to get through as much of these as we can. But if you need to drop out, you won't break my heart. All right. Okay. What do we got here? We've got. Oh, wait. Hold on a second.
Yeah, I'm going to actually have to split, but thank you very much. All.
Come back for the comments, Mark. They're golden.
Thank you. Oh, I
Love
see them
you.
all. They're beautiful.
We'll see them, Mark.
Thank you, Heather Green, for those
Thanks
comments.
for abandoning us. That's such a love story.
No, it's okay.
I'm
the guy who didn't care for it too much anyway. So, you know, you can you can preach about it more.
Oh,
for better or for worse. Isn't that what the...
Yeah. Yikes. All right. Let's see. There's so many of them. Okay. Wait. Okay. All right. Heather Green says, Hard Eyes 2, Hard Eyes of Tammy Faye. Petty jumps in. Hi, everyone. It's a very good movie.
Petty.
One of the few outstanding ones.
Oh, yes,
Argentine
Petty.
cinema.
See, he's seen The Secret in Their Eyes. It's so good.
Maybe we'll have to do a Here We Go Again with The Secret of Their Eyes.
If you like this, you'll love that.
There you go. Hard Eyes 2, The Thousand Hard Eyes of Dr. Mabuse. I don't know that one.
Oh, that's obscure.
Yeah.
Good for you, Heather.
Yes. Heather, I think you should just come on the show, get it over with. Hard Eyes 2, The Search for Hard Eyes Jimmy. All right.
She must be a real fan of horror because Wild at Heart. There you go. Little nod to
Wild at
David
Hard
Lynch.
Eyes.
God rest
There
his
you
soul.
go. Yes. Hard Eyes 2, Bury My Hard Eyes at
Oh, Jesus. So maybe you are knowledgeable of history. Man, that's from the 70s.
Oh, this is great. Pun on Wes Craven's scariest movie, Hard Eyes 2, Music of the Hard Eyes.
Oh, that's great. That's a double. Yeah.
There you go.
Hard Eyes 2, When a Hard Eyes Calls.
Did you do
Hard
Total
Eyes
Eclipse
2.
of the Hard Eyes yet?
Yes,
she did
yes,
Total
we
Eclipse
did
of
that.
the
Okay.
Hard Eyes.
Okay. Good.
The Girl with a Hard Eyes Tattoo. Hard Eyes 2, Don't Tell Mom has the hard eyes. Yes. Don't tell Mom the babysitter has the hard eyes. There's a good correction. All right.
Wow.
Gang, we're through all the comments. At least I think. I probably jinxed it because Heather's got like a million more of these, I feel. But
Put them in the discussion end.
there you go. Yeah, keep them coming so folks can enjoy those. We definitely will check them out if you have more. But I want to thank everyone for hanging out, for talking about this bizarre film. Yes, we did actually talk about the movie. Katie, you are appropriately dressed for the occasion. We love it. Skulls
Really
and Hearts.
good. Really
Skulls
nice.
and Hearts. Skulls and
And
Hearts.
the red glasses.
Forever. Yeah. I have my candy, which I haven't eaten yet, but in honor of all you. So next week, we're going to be back with more red, plus some white and blue. Yeah, we're going to be talking about Captain America 4. Brave New World. That'll be Tuesday. This will be another Tuesday show, 8 p.m. Central. So join us back here for that. And I may or may not have a story about a collectible popcorn bucket. Depends on if they're available and how much those damn things are. Because I saw that shield at the AMC and I thought, that's I may not like the movie, but that's a cool looking shield. Have you guys seen that? The Cap shield bucket?
No.
I've seen pictures of
Is
it.
that an AMC or or what's the other one?
I think a couple of them, much like the alien heads from Romulus last year, a couple of the chains have variations on them. But yeah, it's a giant, shiny Captain America.
Oh my gosh! Is
Yeah.
that a drink glass?
No,
like a
That's a
glass?
popcorn bucket.
This is the popcorn bucket.
Where's the popcorn?
It goes in the carapace. I wanted one of those,
Jesus.
and
Nicely
I couldn't
done.
find. They're on
Nicely
eBay.
done.
I showed up to the Regal on opening day of that movie, and they said, "Sorry, we're sold out. We started selling them last week." I'm like, "Oh, that's nice and fair."
Yeah. You're like, oh, that's nice and fair. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Great.
got this. My friends went to a pre-screening that I was supposed to go to. So I was like, take my money, get me the I'm a Hugger shirt and the popcorn bucket. And they did it.
I'm a hugger.
Oh, I
that's
have
perfect.
the hugger. Yeah, I'm a hugger.
You just have that right there. Oh, that's beautiful.
Nice.
Isn't it?
Yes. Oh,
Is there
love
something
it.
on the back?
No, just black.
Okay.
But it's a good one.
That's obscene. I love it.
That's
Oh,
me
wait,
and my stuff and my things.
Wait. Oh. Petty says, "Ha ha ha!" For a moment, I was scared when Katie took out that black object. and Petty says, "Bye," as he does. Now, now that I'm thinking about it, because we were talking about that the pink thing that shows up in Hard Eyes that is used as a weapon. So I think Petty thought you were bringing out one of those.
Oh, I mean, come on now. That's just obscene. That's just a no.
Well, I mean, you got that second jaw in there. Never mind. All right.
Oh wow.
So everybody, thanks for hanging out and talking Hard Eyes with us, or watching us, or listening to us talk Hard Eyes, whatever you're doing. I have been Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Jeff York of the Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artists, Katie Glidewell, the the artist known as the Blonde in Front, yes, and also Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck, who had to run of Special Mark Productions and Spoiler Room Podcast. Check out all of Earth's Mightiest Critics information down below. And join us next week for Captain America 4. And till next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much. Take care. And, love the one you're with. I think that's how the song goes. Happy Valentine's Day. And I certainly want to spread the love to you all. Big kisses. Mwah.
Mwah.
Did that work? Did that cut